Okay, YouTube, it's Kev here from the Kev Baker Show. And don't forget, we are on at the earlier time this week of 9 p.m. in the UK. And that's until we put our clocks forward at the weekend. So join me in just over an hour's time over on tfrlive.com, where I'll be getting into this story we're about to cover here and a whole lot more. And of course, don't forget, we've also got David Icke coming up on the 8th of April on the Kev Baker Show. So don't be forgetting about that. Now, today's story is something that really does interest me anytime I see news on this topic. I'm always really interested to see what's going on. What am I talking about? Well, I'm talking about Mars. And I was just going through the TFR chat over on Skype. All of us hosts, we've got a group chat, and our good friend Lucky had dropped a story in there that is absolutely amazing, folks. Check this out. Mars magic mushrooms. Yes, life on Mars. Shock claim as growing fungi spotted in Mars Curiosity rover snaps. Well, it is what it says on the tin, folks, because what I'm about to show you here is pretty amazing stuff. They say this study is controversial, but what study isn't? And it comes hot on the heels of a discussion that I had with an astrophysicist just last week. We'll get into that in just a moment, but I know you're wanting to see these images, so let's take a look right here. It says a group of scientists claim to have found proof of mushrooms growing on the surface of the supposedly barren planet. Now, in the controversial study, the alien life hunters say they have seen what appears to be algae, lichens, and, quote, Martian mushrooms. My mind just wants to say magic mushrooms for some reason. And this is all in images taken by NASA rovers Opportunity and Curiosity. Now, I get it. We live in a day and age where, rightly so, everybody questions anything that comes from NASA. However, for the purpose of this video here and for the discussion, let's just throw all that kind of controversy to the side for now, and let's take a look at what they're actually showing us here. So this here, it says, scientists claim they have evidence of mushrooms growing on Mars. So we see these little balls here. Obviously, can't really tell much from one still image. Then we come down to this one. Experts think the white specimens in the NASA image from Mars are fungi. Now, this is no small thing, folks, because mushrooms are not just like simple things. Oh, no. And there's one person I would point you in the direction of if you want to hear all about the amazing world of fungi, a kingdom unto itself. And, you know, if we're looking for intelligent life on Mars, it doesn't need to be walking about bipedally like us here. It doesn't need to be using laptops, because fungi, mushrooms, etc., they are highly, highly intelligent. And we can get into that more on the show tonight. I'll be joined by Scott Lopez. But let's take more of a look at what's going on here. It says NASA has not confirmed or denied that the conclusions drawn by the Journal of Astrobiology and Space Science have any scientific merit. Now, many scientists believe that Mars is currently the only planet in the solar system which has a strong possibility of hosting life. But the consensus in the scientific community is that there is life on Mars. If there is life on Mars, it's probably below the surface. Now, the new study claims that 15 fungi specimens were photographed by NASA growing out of the ground on the red planet in just 3 days. In just 3 days, folks. So they monitored this actually growing. Not the still image that we've seen there earlier on that we can't really tell too much from. But if you have like a progression, a time lapse, and you see something growing, well, that's a telltale sign there's something going on, right? But of course, people will question us, right? Because it comes from NASA. So if we come down here just quickly before we go and listen to what Brendan Drackler had to say about life on Mars, it says Dr. Regina Das of the Department of Microbiology, School of Life Sciences in India, claims that the photos do not show any fungi species that grow on Earth. There are no geological or other abiogenic forces on Earth which can produce sedimentary structures, by the hundreds, which have mushroom shapes, stems, stalks, and shed what looks like spores on the surrounded surface. Now, all of that there, that's quite a lot of evidence. That's quite a lot of boxes been ticked as to these things performing and acting like fungi that we see here on Earth. Again, this, in my opinion, this is absolutely huge. It truly, truly is. It might not seem like it, but I think this is big, big news, especially when you've got people like Elon Musk and other companies out there looking to go and, basically populate Mars, colonize Mars. And that was the subject of the conversation I had with Brendan Drackler, like I was saying, and he's an astrophysicist from the Rochester Institute of Technology. And I'm just going to play a couple of minutes of that interview here, if I may take that time from you, because I think this perfectly kind of gives his take on the potential for life on Mars. Take a listen to this.
Was doing observations of Mars, and he noticed these weird striations all over the surface. I mean, you can see these. You can pull up a picture of Mars right now. You can type in Mars striations, and you'll see these things. And at the time, with very primitive knowledge, he hypothesized that they were canals on the surface, and that the Martians used those canals to transport water. And for a long time, ever since then, essentially, we've had an infatuation with Mars. It's very similar to our own planet. It's at a very similar distance to our own planet. It has similar properties to our own planet. And so we've always been infatuated with it. Could it have life? Well, I think we're at a stage right now where we can say for sure it doesn't have intelligent life. What's more interesting, I think, is what it used to be like. Because that's really interesting. What did Mars used to be like? Because it does have a very, very clear evidence that there used to be running water on the surface. And in fact, we can see running water on the surface today. It's just not the type of water that we think of. It's not a lake. It's not a river. But we can see these striations on certain craters. The Newton crater is a really popular one, I believe is the name. And you can see, as the seasons change, that water begins to run down the slopes. Now it's very, very salty water, very viscous water. And so it doesn't flow like you would typically think of water. Instead, we infer that it's there by the fact that the soil changes color. And every season it appears, these striations appear, and every season, when the winter comes, they disappear. When the summer comes, they appear. And what it likely is, Kev, is meltwater. There's meltwater underneath the soil. And keep in mind, the temperature of Mars, people don't realize this, but generally the temperature of Mars is pretty damn cold. We're talking negative 60 Celsius. Okay, that's cold. That's really, really cold. You're not living in that. But at the equator, in the summertime, Mars can get up to 20 Celsius or 70 Fahrenheit. So feasibly, it's not a barren wasteland. And you could imagine that there could be some form of simple cellular bacterium or organisms living in the soil still. It's perfectly feasible.
Well, that there was Brendan Drackler, like I say, astrophysicist, and you can find his work over at www.thestateoftheuniverse.com. He has his own podcast. He's from the Rochester Institute of Technology. And this is certainly something I'll be bringing up with Brendan when we're back on the show next month, because he's going to be coming on every month. And this is something we'll be discussing, the potential now for a study coming out. And there are scientists who have peer-reviewed this, and they are basically saying that we have got mushrooms growing on Mars. Now, life on Mars, in my opinion, they probably discovered this a long, long time ago, but the fact that we're now being told about it, that's a milestone. It truly is, because they tell us everything at their own timing for a reason. So keep your eyes on this. We'll be over on the Kev Baker Show in less than an hour now. Over on tfrlive.com, we'll be getting into this. We'll be getting into all of the hashtag no collusion. I know Scotty Lopez wants to unload on that. We'll probably be talking about the fact that Jesse Smollett's, remember him that faked that attack? Well, he's only gone and got off with all of it. We'll be getting into that. And some quantum woo. So please, please, please join us on tfrlive.com in just under an hour. Until then, take care and God bless.